everybody. I'm Becca Hansen. I'm a clinical manager here at Skyway in our eating disorder and complex trauma track.
And I'm Adie. I'm the Dietitian manager here at Skyway.
So we are here to talk today about eating disorders and the holidays, and some questions and concerns that may come up for people themselves or people that our loved ones that have eating disorders or are in recovery from eating disorders. So we have a few questions that were submitted specific to this topic that we're going to talk about today. So we can just dive right in. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first question is, what are some specific concerns that might come up during holiday celebrations for someone with an eating disorder?
So what comes to my mind first, of course, dietitian, live in the world of food. So it's the food question. So what's going to be served? How is it going to be served? And like when it's going to be served. So the what, maybe some fears around like the type of food that might be had. Maybe the amount, maybe there's some like urges around amounts of food. So fears of maybe like the buffet style type setting. If food's going to be out with appetizers, just the whole what's it going to look like with food at the holiday. Mm-hmm. That comes to mind for me.
Sure.
Yeah. How about you?
In addition to that, I would add just keeping in mind that holidays and holiday celebrations mean such different things to different people. Mm-hmm. I think one thing that I've often heard clients talk about is kind of the fear of what our loved ones will ask, what our loved ones will say to us. Mm-hmm. What ridiculous diet culture comment will they say, and how do we react to that? So sort of planning out our defense, if you will. So kind of just the whole thing. Lots of different components. Yes.
Comments about bodies.
Yes.
Yeah, can be all difficult conversations, and how are we going to navigate that with people that we care about?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll get into kind of how to do that. Don't worry. Stay tuned.
I guess one other concern that might come up for folks that might be struggling with like compensatory behaviors is movement and feeling like the need, do I have to move if I eat XYZ? Kind of those feared thoughts that kind of come up too is probably a concern that comes.
Totally.
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Next question, how can you, as a loved one, best support someone who has an eating disorder during the holidays? So we can start with you, Adie.
Sure. So this one, my first thought is asking them what they need and letting them know that you're there for them. So giving them that autonomy piece of being able to direct and ask for help, while also making sure that you let them know that you're there for them is what comes up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. So I think hopefully before the holiday, there's been some discussion of kind of what the needs are. And that's the great part of kind of doing support therapy is kind of working through those, identifying needs and asking for the support that we need going into these events. But definitely just letting your loved one know that you're there for them, that you're willing and open to supporting them in whatever way they're needing. I think that goes so far in terms of letting someone feel your support and that you love them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've heard.
Sure.
I've heard working with clients, one thing that's always suggested when we talk about, in a group setting, like how are we going to help feel supported around the holidays, is I've heard a lot of folks recommend having a support person. So maybe that, and having them identify that who that support person is. So the holiday day, maybe they can go to them to vent, or maybe go to them for like a safety net of this person won't make comments. I feel comfortable with them. But it's always suggested maybe, they contact one person that they feel comfortable with at the holiday.
Absolutely.
To be supported.
Yeah, love that. Okay. How can you set boundaries around food judgments, food comments, etc. with loved ones throughout the holidays?
Oh gosh.
This is a big one.
I appreciate the we have to navigate depending on who says it. If it's someone that they've already heard maybe you set that boundary. It's probably a little bit easier. If it's Aunt Kathy from Tucson, Arizona, or whatever, that you see once a year, that could be difficult because you probably want to see her, and if she makes a comment, it might be difficult to set that boundary. So it's up to you, of course, and your comfort level. I love being upfront and honesty and being like, hey, that's not really helpful. Let's change the subject. We don't have to really argue the point of diet culture because they might be coming from a world that they don't understand what they're doing with the comments that they're making. So it could be just helpful to say, that's not a really very helpful thing for me, or like, can we talk about something else? Let's just change the subject.
Yeah, boundaries are so important. And I think about it kind of in the same way that you would set a boundary to maybe not talk about politics.
Yeah.
Same idea. Like, let's just have the ground rules going into it. That allows the conversation to kind of already start. So it's not feeling like this scary thing that you have to do in the moment. So even if you have one person that you can say that to, kind of going in to the celebration, that you feel like you kind of have an ally. And that makes it easier then to come back and be like, either give that person a look to help you, or to be like, we already talked about this. Let's not continue in the conversation. I think one thing that Adie said is really important in terms of kind of knowing that it's not your job to challenge every diet culture comment or diet culture in general at this celebration. I think that it can feel like you kind of go in and really want to like change people's mindsets and shift perspectives and everything. And it's, really, that's a lot to put on yourself. And it's also not very likely to happen. Aunt Kathy has her thoughts, has her opinions, and you may not be, that celebration may not be the moment that shifts for her. And that's okay. And it's sort of finding that level of advocacy in the moment that is right for you, while also kind of, it's doing what you can do, but not knowing that you're the only one that has to be responsible for fixing this in the world.
There's so many comments about bodies in this world, and it would be really difficult in a holiday time frame to challenge all of those ideas.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Also saying it's also really it can be very difficult to hold as well. So acknowledging that like it is hard, and knowing that maybe there's more context behind it, where they're coming from, that their opinions and ideas and beliefs aren't the truth. There's so much more there,
Right.
So acknowledging also it's hard.
Yeah. Okay. How can you take care of yourself during the holidays while also continuing with your eating disorder recovery?
How can you take care of yourself?
And I think this one kind of fits in, Amy. This fits in with the last question too. So do's and don'ts throughout the holidays. So I think we can kind of combine those two.
Okay. Well, coming in again on that clinical dietitian side, still treating it as a normal day. If you are on a meal plan or a scheduled eating pattern, it's helpful for anyone in this world, whether you're on a meal plan in recovery or not, to be eating every 2 to 4 hours throughout the day and giving yourself that energy balance throughout the day. So I would say continuing to do that, not waiting till the end of the day to eat, still having breakfast, still having lunch, still having those snacks throughout the day. I would also say like talking beforehand with treatment team if you have any fears around like holiday type food, like snacks and whatnot, and maybe pre-planning that if that is something you feel you need to do, or if you're at a stage where you want to challenge yourself to allow yourself to have what you want in the moment, and challenging the eating disorder, allowing that, having that perspective of like, okay, this is hard, and also I want this Christmas cookie right now. Yeah.
I definitely agree with all of those. So sticking to the schedule or the meal plan that you already have in place is a huge piece of all of this, and not kind of waiting to eat or kind of, feeling the pressure of what other people are doing or kind of how they approach their holidays. I think going back to kind of what we talked about before, asking for what you need for these celebrations, knowing that you can take breaks, you can step out if you need to take a minute, contact that person that Amy was talking about, that you've already identified as kind of the safe person or an ally. Also practicing setting boundaries beforehand. So with your therapist or with your dietitian, sort of having that conversation, a little role play, to practice saying those boundaries out loud. Because I think in the moment, sometimes when we're trying to set a boundary, it can be a lot and intense all at once. And sometimes if we haven't practiced that, we can forget everything that we were about to say.